Hello YouTube, I'm Arend Peter. This is part of a series where we're trying to discover how to be more informed. The past few videos have been dedicated to describing this diagram, which attempts to organize all the areas of importance into a series of branches. Today I'm going to talk about society, which is the third and final branch. But first I'll be starting with a quick disclaimer. Out of all the videos in this series, this is the video that I probably feel least prepared to make. In my 10-year anniversary video, I mentioned that the driving factor of my videos is whatever I'm passionate about at the time, and that usually means that I'm still learning and I haven't reached mastery in the topic. This video is going to be a good example of that, but even though it won't be perfect, I wouldn't be making this if I thought there wasn't any useful information to be gained here. It's also a good opportunity to highlight that developing this diagram remains a constant work in progress for me, and it will never be complete regardless of how long I wait to make these videos. The day my values stop changing is also the day I stop growing, so I don't have any sense of guilt for posting an incomplete video. Alright, that's all for the disclaimer. Today we're going to talk about society. I'm defining society as the set of systems which governs how the world develops. We like to think of our personal values and development as purely being a function of our own free will, but in reality there are a lot of factors in the background which skew our thinking and our experience. I like to think of them as levers that are being adjusted in the background, and they significantly impact the direction of the world through their accumulated influence on individuals. One of these systems is our political system. This is the method by which people come to power in government and the policies they have control over. The process of creating new laws is another aspect I'm including under politics. And these strict rules on what we can and can't do is probably the clearest indicator on how political institutions affect the world. The next aspect under society is economics. The way money flows between people and institutions determines the division of wealth across society and therefore determines who has the most power and freedom. As a result, policies with financial incentives and deterrence in the form of subsidies and taxes have a large effect on our behavior. The next system is our education. I'm mainly referring to the public schooling systems provided by the government, but this also includes education from our parents and peers. Our education determines the knowledge we have, and that knowledge is all we have to go off of when making our decisions. So education impacts ourselves and the world in general in a very direct way. These are the primary factors I can think of for society, but I'm sure there's more. Let's look back at the world and think of some examples of how society affects it. For the natural world, our education shows us how to act as sustainable consumers in favor of preserving the natural world. For this example, government laws on things like agricultural water usage and electricity production have an even larger impact on the natural world. Next, I want to talk about some examples of how society affects the area of arts. Our economic system favors products and career paths according to the economics of supply and demand, but this may or may not align with how much we actually value each career path for society. Furthermore, economics also has a big impact on people. Looking at the income distribution across different races and genders shows another flaw in the way society distributes money. A potential cause could be that society doesn't give equal access to quality education depending on which group you belong to. Another cause is that there's not enough education on things like racial prejudice and social issues in general. Furthermore, in education, by breaking up the issues in this way, I'm also implying that I think public education should be broken up along these lines. It covers a lot of this already, but if we look at things like personal finance or learning about how people's experiences can vary depending on their background, these aren't covered very thoroughly in public education. For clarity's sake, before people leave any comments, I'm hoping we can agree that all these issues in the world are indeed problems. I think it's helpful to use the societal factors to describe the causes of the problem, but there's still a lot of room to add here, so I'm curious to hear how it can be broken up differently. Also, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to talk about any potential solutions, but I'd be happy to hear them if you have any comments. In adherence to the theme of this series, I'd like to justify why learning more about society is in our self-interest. I previously established that we should want to learn about the world because it makes our perception of day-to-day life more beautiful. Once we see the world as beautiful, we should naturally want to learn more about the systems that govern it. And this in turn shows us how society affects us. Furthermore, we would be interested in learning how to modify society in order to ensure that it continues to improve the world, and also further develop to enrich our lives even more. A cynical perspective would be that these are ingrained systems and we can't change them, so there's no use delving any deeper. But throughout history, we've seen countless examples of what can be achieved when large amounts of individuals identify common values and push for change. The potential for change through grassroots movements is what should motivate us to gain more understanding of society, because ultimately, individuals working to improve society means a better world and therefore better lives for us. I'll apologize in advance for pigeonholing an old quote to drive my point, but as Gandhi once said, be the change you want to see in the world. I've heard multiple sources describe this charitable outlook as pure love, and it comes as an extension of loving ourselves because our perspective has grown to see how we're ingrained in society. That's all for my attempt at showing all that's important within a diagram. As stated earlier, I would be very interested to see your diagrams as well, and there are instructions in the description for how you can share it. Hopefully seeing each other's diagrams will help us see where we need to make improvements in our own diagrams, and we can slowly reach a more accurate view of the world. For additional resources, I've got lots of good books and videos in the description. The one I'm going to call out now is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. It looks at success and how people will become outliers. And it does a good job of highlighting the systemic causes for these things, right, as opposed to individual merit. So I think that does a good job of getting you in that frame of mind thinking about the systemic causes.